For some, the goal is enlightenment. For others, their goal is a goal.
Welcome back to Matchday Matinee, where every week we combine our love of football and films to dive into the cinematic takes on the beautiful game.
Thank you very much for joining us today at Matchday Matinee. I'm your host for today, Adam. I'm joined by Raghav. Hello, mate.
Hey, how you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just enjoying life.
And I'm joined by Mark as well. And how are you?
Good, Adam. We're good. Nice to be joining you guys today.
So, what have you guys been up to the last week since we last all got together to discuss football movies?
Well, at the time of recording today, we have just found out that the Premier League is coming back on June 17th. So that's going to be excellent. I'm really looking forward to that. Other than that, just, as live football ramps up, it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to see how the world will deal with, physically not being in the stands and how long that's going to go on. I'm maybe anticipating until the end of 2021, but you know what? I think we'll see ourselves through this and we'll be back at our football stadiums in no time, but obviously making sure that safety is the number one concern.
Yeah, you'd hope so. And there's some teams are doing some cool things. You saw that club in Denmark that's got like those Zoom screens up on one of their stands, and it's just like interesting clubs are trying different things. Another one that's running games at a drive-by cinema in Denmark. It's kind of cool. Like people are trying different things that they can. But yeah, I enjoyed the Dortmund Bayern Munich game the other day.
Oh, absolutely! That was a great game.
It didn't go the way I wanted it to, but it was still enjoyable.
Yeah, those video screens, those have to be on tape delay, right? Like, there's no way they
You
go
would
live.
imagine so. I'd heard somewhere that they have a live team of moderators that are constantly monitoring the footage to check, but you'd imagine it has to be on some sort of delay, because otherwise someone could do something quick, right? And then it's just like, crap, that was on TV.
Quickly,
yeah, and they're not, I guess they're piping chanting from them, but not like everybody's just conversation back and forth. And even that's weird. They did it at the Dortmund game where they showed you people sat on Zoom, and there was one guy whose internet must have been about 2 minutes behind everybody else because he wasn't celebrating when everybody else was. It was super awkward. Yeah. How are you, Mark? You been up to much this past week?
I'm good. I'm doing some more school, homeschooling my daughter, as well as taking some own courses myself, and then work as usual. And on the side, I've been binging a couple of new Netflix shows, so I feel like I'm living my best college life again. College with a kid, almost. Yeah. Watching a couple of coming-of-age stories on Netflix. I discovered this new TV show called Trinkets.
Okay.
It's got Negasonic Teenage Warhead, the girl who played her, from Deadpool, Brianna Hildebrand.
Oh, yeah. Okay, guys, without further ado, we're going to get into today's movie. And today we are going to talk about The Cup. Inspired by true events, the story follows two young Tibetan boys, Hayden and Nilmar, escaping Tibet and arriving at a Tibetan monastery in exile nestled in the picturesque foothills of the Himalayas. The monastery attempts to hook up a satellite dish so the locals can watch the World Cup soccer matches. The cast, and I'm going to apologize in advance, I ain't going to get these names right, let's be honest. So the cast are Oryen Tobgal, Netin Chokling, Jamyang Lodro, and Lama Chondri. The director, and this is the hardest one to say, Khyentse Norbu, who himself was a one-time Buddhist. The production was by Jeremy Thomas and his production company, Recorded Picture Company. It was released on the 29th of August 1999. It's a runtime of 93 minutes. The movie is available in Popcorn Flicks, but you'll need a VPN as that is only available in the US. And here's my quick little synopsis. The Cup is a comedy where a group of exiled Tibetan monks find themselves torn between adhering to their Buddhist traditions and celebrating the World Cup. The film opens with some monks kicking a can of Coca-Cola, and we're immediately introduced to their inner conflict in the movie. Two students arrive from Tibet, having just made the dangerous journey. They're accepted by the abbot and the gecko who run the monastery between them. They meet Lodo and Orjins, two avid football fans, one of whom has a homemade Ronaldo vest whose colours leak when it rains, in addition to obsessively poring over football magazines before cutting out the pages and sticking on the wall, including one that oddly looks like Sheffield Wednesday superstar David Hurst, which I couldn't quite figure out why. They then conspire to sneak out together to watch a football match, and they get caught by Gecko, who punishes the kid. However, football fever starts to permeate across the camp, leading the boys to ask permission to get a TV to watch the 98 World Cup final. Gecko is somewhat stricter and doesn't allow it, but then the abbot overrides him, tells him to lighten up, and allows them, asking what time the war between the two nations fighting for a ball will start. Cue much hilarity as the boys try to raise enough money for not only a TV, but also a satellite. Along the way, Orgien points his friend's watch and they fall out and he can't enjoy the match, but Gecko lightens up and offers to buy back the watch. So what did you guys think? It's the third foreign language film we've done, and one that comes, I guess, with a little bit of homework about the context that the characters find themselves in.
First Asian film too, I believe, that we've done.
Yep, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is my first time watching this movie. I believe you guys have watched it before.
When I was young, like long time ago.
I feel like I've seen it but didn't remember a lot of it, so I'm not too sure. Maybe it's one I had on in the background, which isn't ideal with like foreign language films at all.
Yeah.
So I recognized bits of it, so I picked it up from somewhere for sure.
Yeah, what I remember about this is when I was younger, we used to have a satellite system, and I think this used to come on quite often. I think on the Sundance channel, like some indie channel like that. This used to come on like once a month or so, and so I've watched it at least once all the way through, but maybe a few times in bits and pieces. So the story started coming back to me. I think one of the things about this movie that I didn't quite remember was the build-up, or maybe I just didn't understand because I was too young, but the whole refugee crisis and people escaping from China to come to India to stay at this monastery. I don't know why I have Montessori on my mind.
Montessori.
Yeah. I don't even have kids, though. That's the weird part.
Drive past one earlier today or something?
I don't think so. Monastery. But yeah, and this is something that we see quite often, even when I've gone back to India to visit. Sometimes our family will take us to the northern part of India, bordering Nepal, where all the Himalayas are, and you'd see monasteries like this and Tibetan monks. So it's quite interesting to see those two parts of my world converge with this movie, and then also prior travels that I've done.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this wasn't at all what I was expecting. I think from what you guys had told me and like the quick synopsis you gave me, it was two boys going out on an adventure to, I thought, watch a soccer match, but live, I guess. No, it is on TV. So I hadn't watched any trailers coming into it. I just kind of saw the posters, and I almost expected like a road trip, like fish out of water story of these two Tibetan monks traveling to get to France. So an hour into the movie, I think I finally realized that wasn't going to happen.
Wasn't going to get there.
So they're still at the monastery. I'm thinking, when did they finally leave? And spoiler alert, they never leave. So it was not what I expected. It was a nice film, but I don't know. It didn't engage me that much.
It's weird, right? It spends a lot of time, and I think this is justifiably so. And when you watch it in the context of it being directed by someone who used to be a monk, it makes sense. It does a lot of that groundwork to show the Tibetan culture and what it is and how it exists right in India. They're always, and like even really early on when there's a taxi driver that brings the two boys and they talk about the rice and they're like, do they even have rice in Tibet now? And they're like, yeah, but it's Chinese rice. And it's just that they're trying to set up you understanding what Buddhist culture is at least based on. And then I guess as the film progresses, it's almost like a take of like showing the Buddhist monks aren't completely what you think they are. There is like a mixture of culture. Even the fact that they let the kids go to the local village and they're allowed to spend their money presumably on whatever they want, because he comes back with these football magazines along with the supplies, and it shows how there's more sway. People have these images of monks, don't they? As like never talking, being celibate, giving up like every vice there is known to man, where clearly these kids have, there's people in the monastery that clearly have Coca-Cola as a vice because they were kicking around that can, and then like these boys have football as a vice. So I think I think it puts a lot of groundwork into establishing that before going whole hog on like the misadventures of the football.
Yeah, I think this movie actually humanizes that portion of Buddhism in a sense of the monastery life. where you're right, like our foray into Buddhism or our view into Buddhism is quotes by the Dalai Lama, right? It's things that you see on TV, and like you said, rightly so, like celibate life, quiet, Zen. You hear Zen, those things, but this is actually putting a human element onto that part of the culture, and really seeing that these people have interests outside of just living a true monk lifestyle. So that's what I took away from it.
Makes the characters relatable as well. I think we were supposed to believe that these are characters without want or without fault, looking at it from an outsider's view. I mean, what you were saying, like the traditional kind of stereotypical view of a Buddhist monk is kind of like you were saying, Zen without want or attachments. When in reality they're people, right? And it was cool that it was the director who came from that lifestyle and that religion to show the inner workings of it. So I did appreciate that. We got a lot of insight into that.
Yeah, and the other portion of this that I will say is that it was very true. So they spoke their mother tongue, I think Tibetan, or I think that's the language that they were speaking throughout most of this movie. But then there was scenes where the monks were actually speaking Hindi to the owner of the satellite and TV. Okay. So they were speaking in Hindi at the very beginning of the movie when Orion is sent to get vegetables from the village or wherever it is, and he's riding on his bike. He's actually singing a popular Bollywood song in Hindi while he's so I mean they've kept really true to how Buddhist refugees in India might live, what some of their mannerisms may be like, and just I guess sort of a clash in culture of Buddhist monks and just being in India and having to deal with Indians. So that was really cool.
And then as we kind of move on, we learn that I guess they're all rooting for France at the World Cup as well, which is interesting and they give you a bit of context to that. And apparently the only country that massively was in support of Tibet at the time was actually France.
But he makes a homemade
but then
Ronaldo
he makes
kit.
a Ronaldo shirt, which is weird. Yeah, like his vest that he makes is Ronaldo. So I'm not quite sure, like mixed loyalties there.
One of the scenes that most spoke to me was actually in the very beginning when they're playing football with a Coke can.
Yeah.
And I've watched many documentaries of kids, more growing up in third world countries, where, in the West or in the UK, they say all you need is a ball and jumpers for goalposts. In a lot of African companies, the jumpers are the ball. And likewise here, I took that away as well, where they're actually just playing with a Coke can. And really, it kind of puts it into perspective that football can be played in any form, and the smallest thing can become a ball. And that's why I think it's the most popular sport in the world and just absolutely accessible to everybody.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's definitely why that's there. And it just shows like it's like a kid's imagination, right? They can score a World Cup winning goal. It doesn't matter like what it's with, Coke can, pair of socks, whatever, right? Yeah. It's super cool. Yeah. So then we kind of, as we go through the film, we get to, it slowly, like we said, slowly starts to build up. The boys arrive. The abbot kind of writes to their parents. We see them flipping through the footy mags. And one thing I noticed actually, it's like current football magazines they're getting, because if you look on the back wall at one point, it has a picture of David Beckham getting sent off against Argentina, which happened at the 98 World Cup. So it kind of surprised me. I assumed they were old football magazines, but apparently this town is pretty well stocked that they're getting like the latest football magazines.
Might just be negligence.
Yeah, it could have been.
Oh, true, yeah.
I think it might just be negligence, to be honest.
This film was made in 2002?
1999.
1999.
99.
Yeah, just after a year after the World Cup. But yeah, I think...
Maybe you're right. Maybe somebody was like, oh, it'd be cool to tie in with the World Cup, but didn't really think about the real world.
Yeah.
Like the in-fiction implications.
Exactly. And yeah, like I highly doubt they would be getting up-to-date magazines so quickly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible that they get them once a month or something, but quickly, I'm not sure.
Thinking like even here in Canada, if there's a couple of like English magazines I used to get, and even like Indigo and Chapters, it's always like last month's issue that they're selling like now. You never get it quite current enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we also see, I guess, another vice at this point because the kids are looking through the footy magazines, and then one of the older kids has got another magazine. And they're like, "Yeah, let's look at it. Yeah, let's look at it." And it's like a not nude magazine, but I guess a provocative. I wrote smut in my comments. It's just like it's almost like a Sports Illustrated or something.
It's
and you're like, wow.
It wasn't even like a Maxim or anything. It was even more tame than that.
I think it was just tame. I think it was just how we're normally used to seeing advertisements in this part of the world.
Yeah, that's true.
I think might just be a little bit like, oh my God, look, she's wearing a crop top, right? Like,
like
which for us, it's like,
long legs.
okay, that's normal. Like,
Shortly after this, they go to sneak out torture game. They go and see a guy actually who's known as a predictor who smells. For some reason, it's established throughout the film that this guy stinks and his room stinks. We met him earlier in the film when the abbot was concerned about the two boys coming in. He goes and asks the gecko, go and get him to make a prediction. So they go to get him to make a prediction on the football match because I guess they're between them as well. They're kind of making bets on the outcomes of the game. So they sneak out and they put on some jackets and they go to watch France versus Italy. This is the part where one of the older kids doesn't understand. So we get our typical explanation of the offside rule, which we seem to get in every film where there's a character that doesn't understand football. That's the one thing that gets explained to them.
I thought that was funny because 20 years on, you have final score, and that's still like the low-hanging fruit joke of soccer.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so you can understand all the rules about like American football and how many downs each team has and stuff, but you can't understand offside. It's just like
the easy joke.
Yeah, you're right. It is lowest hanging for sure.
The funniest thing about that is I think until very recently, I think football people didn't understand the offside rule because it was like, okay, is he offside when he's touched the ball or is it offside when he's just found to be, interceding with the play? So yeah, I'm glad they've kind of sorted that out now in the professional game.
You say that though, but VAR has made it even worse, hasn't it? Because literally any part of you that can score a goal is classed as offside. So we were getting, I remember one that was where Sheffield United, I think it was against Manchester United, where like the very tip of someone's boot was offside, but it wasn't the foot they scored the goal with even. And it's just like, okay, everyone should just wear like green boots so that they can't differentiate.
Yeah, or the Roberto Firmino armpit offside.
Yeah, that one was famous too. It's like, do you score with your armpit? No, I think they've revised that though to change. I know this is total divulgence, but what handball is counted as, and I think now to stop kind of that situation happening.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they explain that the kids are watching football, and then they get thrown out because the little one keeps jumping up too often. And they kind of get into a little fight. It's a little bit tame, but I guess by their standards, that's like a fight because they're meant to be calm and not fighting, even though they're younger. And so they get kicked out. They sneak back into their rooms or try to. And it's like, I guess they went out at night and it's already the sun's coming up by the time they get back.
Yeah, because the game's around midnight, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They establish that, don't they? They establish it a couple of times, and especially like later in the film. Yeah. So they get caught by Gecko. He somehow appears behind them like he'd been out there wandering all the time. And so they get punished for sneaking out. Gecko goes to talk to them about how hard it is to like discipline monks in modern time. And the abbot kind of doesn't understand it. And he's like, well, it's World Cup time. So they're back in their room. There's another shot here that we see as well. Noticed it because there's Carlos Roa saving a penalty against England again. So again, just all these very modern magazines in the background. And I quite like this scene. After this, their punishment is to basically cook for everybody for, I forget how long for. And they're kind of cooking.
1 month.
Is in 1 month.
Yeah, it's 1 month.
And that's the bet that they had made as well, right? Whoever will lose has to cook. Yeah, and then to do it anyways.
So then they're cooking, and one of the kids is like, they're all like, oh, we hate cooking, we hate it, this sucks and stuff. And the one guy's like, I hate cooking whilst you're sat researching football, because he's still sat with his magazine. Right. And I just really like this because it reminded me of like the hours I spent like poring over like Panini sticker albums every tournament and like learning all the stats and stuff. And I was like, this kid is just like basically me, but in a different setting. And I was like, it's super true and like truly relatable to kids that on the onset when you first start to fall in love with, I guess, any sport, right? You pour over it in a way that you never have time to do later on in life unless it becomes a career for you. So that was
I
super
think
cool.
we still do that, but it's there's no
different,
like
right?
tangibility to it. Like you can spend hours and hours on Wikipedia just diving down that hole.
Yeah,
Whereas
that's
when we
true,
were
actually.
kids, yeah, you would get like I remember like a program. I would find a program for like the World Cup at my library and just poring over like the most detailed
Everything.
of stats, or like going to the movies and picking up that movie magazine, and you would read it from like front cover to back cover, just poring over it.
Yeah, that's a good example, actually, those World Cup programs. So like, I remember World Cup 98. I could I could recite nearly every player in every squad at one point that was at World Cup 98, just because I spent so long reading, and I tell you who was in what group and when they played each other. It's just like I knew everything before World Cup 98 came.
Yeah, I remember like here we'd have like the Toronto Sun is, I don't know if you classify it as a rag now, but like back then they would have amazing sports sections that were full pullouts, and they would do it for like the Olympics, World Cup, Euros back then. And like taking those out, and you would just get, like you were saying, you'd have a poster in there and you'd go over every single detail, every single match preview, much like you would now online, but there's so much, like you just get diverted to like another article about something completely different at that point. So it's your attention is just shot.
Yeah. So it's during this moment they kind of talk about the kids researching the football, and he's like, I'm still going to watch that game no matter what. I don't care. I'm finding a way to watch that game.
Yep.
But then they kind of take a different tack and decide to ask if they can get a TV instead. So Gecko is initially like reluctant, but he goes to ask the abbot, and the abbot this is quite a sad scene really, because I don't know if their love of football is what's making him realize, but he kind of talks about how they have to let go of Tibet and realize that they will never return, and kind of accepting that this new generation of monks, he says that they'll never understand what it's like to live in Tibet. So it's kind of like he's accepting that like his way of running the monastery is not what it's going to be like in future generations, because like one of these kids may grow up to run it, and they're going to have a different outlook on it just by the nature of the fact that they weren't brought up in Tibet in the same way. And so the abbot kind of accepts that maybe they have to embrace whatever vice people have, and in this instance it's the football and it's the World Cup.
One funny scene was when what's his name, Gecko, is talking to the abbot, and he's basically explaining the scene that you were saying, right? And he's basically saying, well, it's two countries fight over a ball, and then the abbot's like, is there violence? He's like, sometimes. He's like, is there sex? He's like, no, the good news is there's no sex. And then the abbot's like, well, how do you know so much about this? And that was a really funny scene, because the guy just had like a wry smile on his face.
Yeah, he doesn't actually respond.
Yeah, he doesn't actually respond. One more thing about these actors. So Gecko is a Buddhist monk still, named Orien Tobgel, who's obviously on the credits of this movie. But I also find it rather interesting that the main character, the boy, his name is Orien in this film. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking if there's any kind of parallels to like, is Orien in the movie supposed to be Orien Tobgel?
Like a younger version.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's what the end credits say, that it's based on a true story.
That would make sense and be a cool like symmetry.
Yeah.
Like
and
Gecko
then
was playing the stricter, maybe like somebody that influenced him in his earlier life, kind of, or something.
Yeah, and then Netin Chokling, I think, is a Buddhist monk as well, who's also credited in this movie.
That's great. It gives it more authenticity, even. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were saying the director was a monk as well, right?
Yes, he was a former monk, I guess.
Yeah, because I was reading that he was involved with the Keanu Reeves movie, The Little Buddha, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
And that's where he met the producer on this film. And then that's how they got together and they made this movie. So I think this is probably his first movie, right? Yeah, it was the first movie. Yeah. One thing I found really off-putting about this film, I think it might have been for like the first hour or so, there was no score. Or not that I could recall immediately. There was no musical score, so it kind of just plodded along for the most part. And then towards the climax of the film, you did start to have that like traditional Tibetan flute music.
Yeah.
Which was like really lacking. Yeah, in that first hour.
At the very beginning, you had some chanting and stuff. But other than that, you're right. Yeah, it wasn't until like the hijinks started that we got a bit of music, kind of.
Yeah. The movie would have really benefited from it.
Do you think, though? I think it could also have the opposite effect, where if you start putting in a score that would probably sound nothing like anything Tibetan monks,
They do have a traditional music, though.
I guess,
You know what I mean?
but yeah.
Like, you could even work it into the film itself where I can't remember the term, where the music is coming through a radio or from a live performance. So use it in that sense. Don't like just put it in as like a Hollywood
no, absolutely.
score being put over. But yeah, the pace of the movie is very slow. And then to not have the score on top of that, I just found it really blunt.
So that part I'll agree with you on. I think especially leading up to any conversation about football whatsoever, I think that movie builds up very, very slowly. Like the first time I think they mention it is Brazil versus Argentina or something. Orion mentions that, and that's like
he passes the note, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Piece of paper.
Yeah, but that's a solid like 15 minutes into the movie. And then just to build up to them actually indulging or watching football is like a solid 40 minutes into the movie. So I found the build up and and I think some scenes were dragged on rather long. I think one scene that comes to mind is some of the, I guess the prayer scenes. There's also that scene where they're washing the clothes. I think that one was especially dragged on a little bit too long. So yeah, I think the pacing of this movie suffered a little bit.
I honestly didn't think it needed to be like, it was already a short 1.5 hour movie, but I think they could have gone for like even shorter, to be honest. I don't know if it needed to be a full feature-length film.
That's what's weird. That all I remember about it is the later scenes. I don't remember. Like I was like watching the clock, thinking, well, when do they start running around trying to get money and stuff? Because I remembered that bit vaguely.
Yeah,
and it's hard, right? I think it's like almost to the movies. Like it's nice. It's all scene setting, right, and all like dressing to be like, here's how they live and stuff, and make this world seem like livable and like believable, but then there's just too much of an about turn to be like, actually, we like football, it's okay, let's go for it, and we'll go do what you got to do, get the money, get the TV, get the satellite, we'll chuck it up on the roof and we'll forget about being Buddhist monks for 90 minutes. And it's like, it's to the film's detriment that about turn happens so quick after all that slow build up. You're right. It almost needed, the film needs to do it more naturally or gradually somehow. And it didn't. It just shot out. Like Gecko comes back out and he's like, all right, whose idea was it? He's like, okay, you go around collecting the money. And then if you get enough money to get the TV and everything, then we're watching the World Cup tonight. It's another quite funny scene. I guess they get the old predictor and they lock him in a room, and they say, well, if you give us all your money, we'll let you out. Yeah. And then they kind of don't let him out. They give him the key, and he's still locked in the room because he can't get his hand up to the padlock, and they just pass the key under the door. Yeah. And then so they go to see this Indian guy who's selling TVs and satellites, and unfortunately they're $50 short. Because the guy is like, well, it's the World Cup. The price has gone up. It was $50. I think it was $300 the week before. Now he's saying it was $350. And like, hey, World Cups, nudge the prices up. And they're just like, what?
So authentic.
Yeah. That's for black and white TV too. Yeah, exactly. Not even the color.
I was like, yes, they really did their research. Like, definitely during World Cup, this guy would raise the price by 50, and it's like, if you want installation, get me another 50, right? Like,
Did you guys read the sign outside his shop?
No, it said something video.
Yeah, like every other word was misspelled, so it was like flim and video.
Oh yeah, for sure, that happens.
Of course. So in the end, they struggle to get the money, but they do get the kid's watch that he brought from Tibet, and they decide to pawn the watch. But on the, I guess the notion that if I think it's if France win, then he'll win the bet and he'll get another $50. He can buy the watch back. But the little kid, we find out kind of late, he's not happy with that choice.
No.
So they end up getting a tractor to take the satellite and the TV. And as they're wheeling away, they're like, oh, which way do we point the satellite? Yeah. And he's like, north. And they're like, okay, brilliant. And then as they're driving back, we kind of have, I think it's a voiceover from the abbot again, talking about how monks are exposed to things that other monks never would have been exposed to, but that these things are ultimately still safe.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's true, right? There's so many horrific vices in the world that could lead you down a way worse path than just watching football could be. And that's why it's the beautiful game and everything, right? So they heist up the satellite onto the roof. This TV's not working, they kind of reposition it and it gets working. They're watching the game and then there's a power cut. And then they have some proverbs told about a rabbit whilst using like shadow puppets with their hands, which is really cool.
Yeah.
There's always a fascination with how people can contort their hands to look like genuinely look like different animals, and they manage that here. And then the lights come back up, the football's back on, and somebody yells, "To hell with the rabbits, let's watch football." And then the abbot and Gecko both come in, and they're kind of given like garden lawn chairs to sit on and watch. But little, the main guy, Organ, is like watching at the front, like miserable, and he's not focused and stuff, and you kind of don't realize why. And it's because his friends won't come and watch it with him because they're pissed about him pawning the watch. So he kind of goes off to his room, and Gecko notices he's gone. Or Abbott points out to him he's gone, so he goes to be like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's in his room, like rifling through his stuff, and he's trying to find stuff that he could use to pay for the watch. And he has like an old knife that he brought from home, and the Gecko's like, "No, you can't get rid of this knife. This is like a traditional Tibetan knife that you brought with you from your family." So he agrees that regardless of what the game is, I will pay your money. So then they go to watch it. And the really weird thing about it is, but it does make sense in the context, because they go back to watch the game and you don't actually see any of the goals. No. You see a couple of shots of things happening. You see one of Emmanuel Petit smiling. You see a shot of Zidane smiling. And then it like fades out. And as they're walking away, Gecko's telling the kids a story, and he's like, "Oh, you want to hear about how the story of the rabbit ends?" And he's like, "But it doesn't matter how the end of the story ends." And it's kind of like, was that meant to be talking about football? Like it's all about the enjoyment of the vice that is football, like enjoyment of football. And at the end of the day, the result doesn't matter, and that's why we don't ever see any goals. I thought that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, so the ending was a little bit confusing for me personally, and it might have just gone way over my head. And keep in mind, this movie was made by a guy that's a former monk. He's still a Lama, actually. So I don't know what this, maybe it's trying to put something together. But yeah, I think your take on it, maybe it's like, you know what, we don't care about the ending, right? How if you don't know the ending, how can you be unhappy? Or if you know the ending, then how are you unhappy? And I think
like
maybe
when people are saying like, how can you enjoy a football match when it ends 0-0?
Yeah,
right. How can anybody
it's
enjoy
not about
that?
the result, is it?
It's not about the result.
Yeah, it's about all those moments in that 90 minutes, all the talking points and everything, and the moments of pretend euphoria when you think a goal's gone in or something, or when a goal's disallowed.
Yeah, I don't live my life like that. Right?
Well, trust me, supporting Portsmouth, I have to live my life like that.
For me, the end result's all that matters, right? I'm like, you know what? Go in, play the crappiest football you can. If you get the result, you get the result, right?
Well, imagine playing crappy football and not getting the results, because that's been my life for most of the last 10 years.
TFC up until 2014.
Yeah.
Even later than that.
The first club team I followed, so that was all I knew for a while there.
Oh, man, good times.
So we've kind of gone through the plot and everything, and the only other part to kind of talk about is the footy flicks. So we don't get a whole lot. We do get the kicking of the Coke can early on, and then there is a shot later on in the film, just before they're about to go cooking, where they are playing football.
Yeah.
And it's very typical of what we've seen in a lot of these other films, of like the close-up shots, no real skill. But I thought in this context, this made sense, because it really captured that frenetic like nature of like, I'd call it like undeveloped or like uncoached football. Like that's exactly how kids play football, like all chasing the ball, shoving each other, trying to just do whatever they can to get the ball. It actually kind of worked in its own ways. What do you guys think?
It draws comparison to United Passions when they had the kids playing in the kind of dirty field. But that felt so commercialized and stylized, whereas this actually had a bit of that like innocence to it, and the truthfulness to it.
Yeah, I think for me it was, I really enjoyed these footy flicks. Not because of the skill, but agree with you on the proportion of which this is raw. Right, this is maybe how kids across the world play. But I think more than that, watching them play in monks' robes. Just running around, not really knowing what they're doing. I think just the costume and everything, it really puts into perspective how global football really is. any corner of the world, any kind of dress sense, you know, however remote you might be, everybody knows football, and that is you know why I love this game. And yeah.
Yeah, and those that were actual monks as well. I think they used a number of monks from that region as extras. So again, guys with nothing but love for the game.
That's it. It's raw passion. It's
really cool.
It's what's forgotten sometimes, I feel, in countries that are more developed in football. Yeah. Where it's just that raw love for the game, not the commercialization of it, not the I got a season tickets, player development pathways, pay to play. I mean, in comparison, when we have some of our conversations offline, I mean, it's just like just put into perspective. It's a global game. It can be played in any form, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So good footy flicks overall. Then just very different to some of the others we've seen, but all the same, good. So that's pretty much it for the plot of the film and everything. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to mention, discuss?
I thought the main actor was amazing. Like,
he's good.
And I think this was his only role up until 2006. So it's a shame that he didn't actually kind of get brought into not Hollywood, but at least Asian cinema and do a lot more roles, because his character, like his facial expressions and the characterization of the little kind of troublemaker in the monastery in exile was just spot on. I loved it.
I'm actually going to search up his filmography because I do believe he has some plaudits to his name. Is that
one more in 2006, I think it was. Yeah, that was it.
Okay, then there you go. All right. Yeah, but I thought he did a really good job, to be honest.
Yeah. But, like, there wasn't any bad acting in this film, now that I think of it. Like, there was that guy who was always asleep, which was great comedic relief.
Yeah.
The kid who had his watch taken from him, dealing with that trauma. But
those two kids in particular, the newer ones, did like a good job of seeming like out of sorts, kind of like through their facial expressions, like not quite comfortable and like learning the ropes almost. Like they did a really good job of that versus like the somewhat cockier other kids that were there.
Yeah, I felt a little bit sad, I guess, every time I saw the little one with the watch. It's just because he misses his mom and then he loses his watch that his mom gave him, and it's like, God, man, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. He was deaf as well, right?
Was he?
Yeah, towards the end of the film, you actually see him and I think it was his uncle, speaking to each other in sign language.
That's not something I caught.
Completely. Oh, okay.
You never actually see the kid talk to Orien, from what I remember. Because when he needs to get the watch, his uncle walks off to go talk to him and say, "We need the watch." He gets upset and he comes back with the watch.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
What would you? So the 5-star rating. What would you guys give this out of 5?
I don't. It's hard. I feel harsh giving it a low score. I think it's a well-made film, true to what it's trying to display, but it's not got any of the craft of a lot of the other films we've seen. It's gonna be like a 2.5 from me. It feels a bit harsh, but it's how I feel. Yourself, Mark?
I feel guilty giving it the score because of like the real life situation behind the film. So it's going to be a 2 from me. Like I didn't enjoy this film. I appreciate the subject matter, the authentic look into Tibetan culture and the effort, but yeah, I didn't enjoy this film. It was an hour and a half long, and honestly, I feel like it could have been, like, not to make light of it or anything, but this could have been like a 10 to 15 minute, like I've seen Pixar do more in 10 minutes. Yeah. With kind of similar subject matter than this film did over an hour and a half. Like I didn't feel it need to be an hour and a half long, and it could have been such a tighter film without that, and a little bit of the score in the background to really build that emotion would have helped it a long ways. And you guys know I rate movies pretty highly, so a 2 is pretty harsh, man.
That's interesting turn of events.
How about you, Raghav?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 2.5 as well. So Mark is on the low end this time, but I'll go with a 2.5. Only because I do tend to agree that I think, given the subject matter, I think they could have shown a lot more on what it means to not really have a home. Right? You're not Indian, but the Chinese government doesn't really claim you either. I think that could have been more talked about. I think Mark was right that there could have been some sort of soundtrack or score to the movie, just to give it that little bit of oomph. but I did appreciate the authenticity. I appreciated that it was bilingual even, right? Because it was in Tibetan and it was in Hindi. Like I liked that authenticity, right? And that you really got a feeling that these guys are refugees in India. I just wish they would have told more of the backstory about that. And then I think they should have focused on the football potentially a little bit more, because it was just kind of like, it just hits you out of the blue.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But yeah, I think a solid 2.5. It's an indie film, so
yeah. That's the other thing. Actually, now you've said that, like the way the football fever builds up in the monastery isn't believable, because we're only really led to believe it's like a handful of the kids that are interested.
Yeah.
But by the end of the film, like everybody's all up watching. Everyone's helping heist up the satellite onto the roof. So yeah, you're right. That is fair.
That might be a cause of there not really being anything else. So it's a change from the ordinary of washing robes, cleaning, and praying, pretty much, right? So to have some sort of excitement in the monastery was probably a big deal.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But then they should have explained that.
I guess. But that's the thing. Like, so you mentioned it before too, but it was interesting how they strayed from politics altogether in this. Like, aside from the graffiti of Free Tibet on a wall at one point, there's not much mention of Dalai Lama or like Tibet trying to reclaim their region. It stays away from that, and I don't know if that helps or hurts it, to be honest. Like, it piqued my interest in that I read more and watched more about Tibet in general to learn more about it. But I guess I think, what do you guys think?
I think from the political perspective, I think there's a couple scenes that I remember. Definitely the graffiti's one. The other one is the whole bit about, France is the only one that supports Tibet.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Obviously, the whole part about these people being refugees and the two kids coming in and having trouble crossing the border. And then there's one line about one guy is asking about the World Cup, but he's like, what do you think of America? And the guy's like, no, they're shit scared of China.
That's right.
Right? Not realizing that the question was football related, but just politically, they're saying, no, America's shit scared of China. So they're not gonna, they're not really on the side of Tibet. So that was interesting. But really they could have done a lot more.
Yeah. You remind me of another scene in the beginning that was actually pretty powerful, when the uncle and child first come in, and he's wearing the Chinese communist hat with the red star on it. And he says something along the lines of, you won't need this anymore. And he tosses it into the air, and it was a nice little shot. So
he's like, throw it back to China or something.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then around that same time, they talk about how it's now illegal to have a picture of the Dalai Lama as well.
Is it? In China?
Anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
Which it must have been for a while by then, because I guess they exiled like the first Dalai Lama like back in the 50s or something, right?
Yeah.
And I guess this is the 8th. Yeah, I think so.
I thought it was this Dalai Lama that made the deal with China.
Well, no, it was in 1980, wasn't it, when they started?
Yeah, it was fairly late, yeah. And he hasn't returned since, and the president of Tibet as well hasn't been back.
Yeah. Interestingly, I think there was an uprising, a Tibetan uprising in 1959 from communist China. I guess maybe it was.
I'm thinking about that.
I think maybe it was like freedom of religion or whatever it is, but it's at that point that the Dalai Lama fled to India.
Okay, I may be thinking about that, and then like
it's really interesting.
Square is closer to this, right? Like 10 years after this is, 10 years. No, 9 years, because that was 89, right? So yeah, that's the most common, the most recent atrocity, I guess, that they faced.
Yeah, it's such an interesting piece of history.
Yeah. And it's something that we don't commonly learn about, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I'm really appreciative that the film kind of made me dive into that a bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things, and I'm guessing you have some trivia questions on Kunifa, but their participation in that as well is, I don't want to talk about it too much in case I stumble across a trivia question.
No, you won't. There's only one question on that, so you can talk about it a little bit. But it is interesting, like, there's a lot of teams that are like displaced. There's teams that are places that are not recognized as nations, right? But there's also a lot of teams that are displaced people who could live anywhere. And they
Koreans
joined
living
as
in
a
Japan
team.
is one, I think,
Yeah.
We have one here in Canada, Cascadia. Actually, we have two. We have Quebec and Cascadia.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Like, I watched an interview with the president of Tibet, and he's living in India. And he used to support Barcelona because they were the underdogs, according to him.
Similar struggle. Actually, if you think about it, the Catalan struggle, sort of.
This was because Madrid was winning too many cups.
Okay.
So he supported Barcelona in that sense. Nothing to do with politics.
All right. I guess so. Cool. Is that a great segue into trivia then?
I think we should move to trivia, guys. Yeah.
Go
So
for it.
to start off, we'll recap the scores. So I'm in the lead with 12 points, Mark with 9, and Raghav with 6.
Jeez.
Interestingly, if neither of you get points, I will be crowned champion tonight. Because, no, Mark, you could join level, actually. I'll tell a lie. Because you could get 12
next
points
week,
still
yeah,
from
you're
next week, yeah. So I tried to, it's kind of hard. There's not a lot about Tibetan football, so I've kind of brought all of the cultures together.
Hold up. Before you get started, I can't win
sorry,
anymore.
You're on 6. No, yeah, I didn't say your score. You're on 6.
No, I can't win then because I'm going to be hosting next week.
Yeah,
You did
sorry.
trivia last week, right?
Oh, wait a sec.
Did I?
Right.
Yeah, you did trivia last week.
What film did we do? Escape to Victory.
It's up to you if you want to concede, man.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did do trivia last week
I did do trivia
correct.
last week. You're
Yes.
right. Yeah.
because there was questions about Bob.
Right.
Yeah, you
So
did.
is it Mark that's
yeah.
doing it next week?
Marston, yeah. So actually, yes. So right, let's recap back to where I was. I can win it this week if Mark doesn't get 3 points.
All right.
So that's exciting stuff.
Yeah, let's virtual handshake right now that I'll at least get a point.
But I can maybe. Can I draw level with you if I get all 3 this week and all 3 next week?
You could, right?
Oh,
You could end
that's
up
the
with
way.
a three-way
Yes,
tie.
we could end up with 3-way tie. Yeah. All right. Well,
That's very
that's
exciting.
exciting stuff. We should have really worked this maths out off air, but never mind.
All right,
Anyway.
Raghav, message me offline.
So yeah, so you got to absolutely smash this, guys. So it was a little bit tricky this week because there isn't much in the way of Tibetan football history. So I kind of taken the 3 core nations that are kind of at the heart of this film. So Tibet, India, and China. And there's questions about each of them. And so it's a couple of questions each, and then kind of one of those, let's try and name people off a list and see where we go. So we'll start with you, Raghav. Pick a number between 1 and 4.
I'll go 3.
Okay, how many times have China appeared at the World Cup?
Oh, God. I am going to. This is going to be wrong, but I'm going to say once.
Correct.
Awesome.
It was recent. I've forgotten. I did have it in my
98, no? Or 2002. 98 or 2002.
It was 2002.
Yeah.
That's the one. They failed to get a single point, finished bottom of their group. So well done. So that's a point on the score for you.
The comeback
Mark.
starting.
Pick a number 1, 2, or 4.
Give me 4.
Number 4. Okay. Which league has the most teams in it? Is it the Indian Soccer League or the Chinese Super League? Top flight only for China.
I want to say the Chinese Super League because I believe the India Super League or whatever they're calling it just restarted recently. So Chinese Super League.
You are correct.
Okay.
Chinese Super League has 16 teams. Indian has 10 at the moment.
Yeah, I knew it was a lot. Kerala Blasters.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's the one that David James played for. He used to be a Portsmouth goalkeeper.
Yep.
Gotta get a mention. in
And
there.
a Liverpool goalkeeper.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So Raghav, 1 or 2?
I'll go 1.
Okay, Tibet, as we've talked about, are a member of Khyentse. They unfortunately did not qualify for this year's tournament. Can you tell me one team that did qualify for this year's tournament?
Only because you mentioned it in a previous chat. But I am going to go ahead and say Yorkshire.
I'm afraid you are wrong.
Oh, fuck. All right, that's me. That's me done. That's me done. That's me done.
I feel bad because we were talking about Liverpool and stuff, and I mentioned how Yorkshire have a team. Just for clarity's sake, I will just say the teams that did. So Western Sahara, Mapache, Kapachi, South Australia, Dafu, Metalaband, Caribe, Cascadia, which we talked about earlier today.
Cascadia.
The Chago Isles, Kurnow, Maria, Punjab, the
That's same
parishes
thing, yeah.
of Jersey, Tamil, the United Koreans in Japan, which we also mentioned earlier, Western Armenia, and Kurdistan.
That's awesome. All
Yeah,
right.
sorry. So, yep, you are out of the running.
My
And
season's
Mark,
done.
that leaves you with the last question in this format. Which team famously declined appearance at the World Cup in 1950 as they wanted to play barefoot?
That was India.
Yes, it was. Correct.
Okay. It was too easy. I was confused.
Yeah, well, no.
right.
Sometimes they're easy. Okay, so that puts you on... Wait, did you get your last question right? Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. Chinese Super League.
10, so you're on 11. Okay. Next one is one of those lovely ones where you guys tried to tell me names of players that are in a big list. So this time it is the most expensive players to have signed. So as we all know, the Chinese Super League went through a crazy period of signing up players for extreme amounts of money. I have got a list of the top 10 transfers.
Okay.
Whoever gets the most in that top 10 list will win the point. And Raghav, we'll start with you.
I can end Mark's season here. I can, right? I can end Mark's season, can't I?
Yeah, if you got the point here. Yep.
So I'm going to say Oscar.
Correct. Oscar is the most expensive in at number 1. He, of course, we talked about this before somewhere else. He signed for 60 million euros from Chelsea.
Yep.
So he was number 1. So Mark, anybody who's in the top 10? Didier Drogba.
Wasn't he free?
Not in the top 10.
Ooh. Ruined the season.
So.
Can I go again?
Yeah, go for it.
Is it Dembaba?
No, Dembaba is not in the top 10.
What about Hulk?
Hulk,
Hulk,
for sure.
yep.
Axel Witsel.
Hulk was number 2, 55.
I should have gone with Hulk.
Axel Witsel?
No, surprisingly not.
No.
So number 3 was Alex Teixeira.
Oh, Alex Teixeira.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. 4, Paulinho. 5, Jackson Martinez,
Oh, God.
the Colombian striker. 6, another Paulinho, not the same one. Oh no, actually, sorry, it is the same one because Paulinho went back to Barcelona, didn't he, and then re-signed again. So he's actually in the list twice. Number 7 is Cedric Bakambu. 8, Anthony Modesta. 9, Ramirez, who used to play for Chelsea as well. And then 10 is Marko Arnautovic, who transferred from Stoke. Yeah. And then in 11, just because Paulinho's in that list twice, you've got Igalo, who plays for Manchester United right now.
Yep.
So at the end of that leaves the scores at 12, 10, and 7. And I am the first season champion, I guess, with that.
10, 12, 7.
Raghav, you can still become joint second, I guess, next week. So there's still 10, stuff to play for.
Yeah, for sure. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I guess for our listeners that don't know why none of the rest of us can win it's because this is our penultimate episode. So next episode is our season finale. Yeah. Where I guess I can just say it now. We'll be discussing the first goal. So part of the goal trilogy, Santiago Munez and his exploits at Newcastle. There we go. It's a contender.
I think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. But for sure, the goal.
Okay, so where are we going to rank this film? I've got the table ranking up here. So The Damn United in number 1. Number 2, Mike Bassett in the manager. Number 3, Escape to Victory. Number 4, Bend It Like Beckham. Number 5, Diamantino. Number 6, Ultras. Number 7, Pele, Birth of a Legend. Number 8, Final Score. Number 9, Kicking and Screaming. And all the way down at the very bottom in 12th is United Passions.
Mm-hmm.
Where's this film for you guys?
Mark, I'll let you start.
Oh, man. This is a funny one because
I know exactly where this is going to fall for me.
it's a bad movie.
It's not that bad.
It was so boring. I couldn't take it. Like I was saying, man, this could be a really good 10 to 15 minute Pixar short before another film. Yeah. I'm going to put it in 9th.
Ooh.
I'm going to knock down Kicking and Screaming, put it on 9th. Below Final Score. That sounds sacrilegious, but Final Score is a lot of fun, and this is the opposite of fun. Not that it's meant to be fun.
Wow, dude.
But it's so hard to get through. It's
all right.
Good subject matter. I just think it wasn't that well made.
Yeah. So for myself,
I don't disagree. But go on, Mario. Go on.
Yeah, for myself, it's not top 6 quality, but it's just below. I think it's above Pele, below Ultras. That's where I'm placing this. For the reason being that Pele could have also been an authentic movie, but chose not to, and had those stupid accents. Whereas this one is more authentic. It's kind of still trying to show that football gets played in different parts of the world. So I'll put this above Pele, but below Ultras. That's me, personally.
Above
Pele.
Okay.
Birth of an
So 7th.
So 7th, yeah, I'll put it 7th.
So you're saying 7th. Mark, you're saying 9th. What if we cut the
Big golf there.
difference and put it in 8th?
No, what are you saying?
I would tend to side with Mark. I think I enjoyed Final Score more than it, and I think I enjoyed Pele more. I know the accents and stuff were dodgy, but I think Pele's like world building was better. Like I liked the first like half an hour of Pele when he was a kid more than I liked the first like hour of this movie.
It was more uplifting for sure.
Yeah,
I will say that.
I think I'm gonna have to say, yeah, I think it's 9th for me as well. Final Score was more fun. It was stupid, but it was more fun. But this one does have better footy scenes, to be fair. Like the few that are in there. Final Score
Better than
hated
Final
football.
Score?
Yeah, it
No,
hated
man,
football.
There was that free kick goal that was scored as Dave Bautista was flying off the roof.
On a motorcycle.
So that alone is better than kicking a Coca-Cola can. However,
Is it better than kicking a Coca-Cola can? Because kicking the Coca-Cola can is like, dude, that shows you how football's played all across the world.
that shows you how Coca-Cola has its like dirty tentacles in every single corner of the world. Like
Everybody drinks Coca-Cola. I've got a Coca-Cola can right in front of me.
Yeah, but everyone eats McDonald's. Everyone
It's true.
buys from Amazon. It doesn't mean that it's just. You remember what they were doing to the workers in Qatar? You
Yes.
could call home if you put instead of using a quarter to make a pay call, you would put in a Coca-Cola cap to make the call. But they never took into account that it takes workers like an entire day to make enough to earn a bottle of Coca-Cola to make that call. And they thought they were doing this big inspirational thing of Coca-Cola is empowering lives and helping you reconnect with your family. It's like, no, you guys are a part of the problem. Anyways, sorry, man. That's my rant about kicking a Coca-Cola can.
All right, so basically we're saying Coca-Cola. Yay for Dave Bautista.
So you're going to put this in 9th?
You said what, 7th?
Yeah, I said above
Yeah,
Pele.
he said 7th. I said
I think it should go
Oh, no.
8th. I think it should
maybe
go 8th.
8th is cutting the difference. I think that's what I'm going to say.
I think it should
stop
go
this
8th.
impasse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it should go 8th.
I can live with that.
Okay.
So what's dropping down and final scores going down?
Final score goes down to
I'll have
9th. Kicking and screaming goes down to 10.
And then goal slots in nicely at number 11.
I'm super interested because I went to the cinema to see that film twice, I think, and then bought on DVD at release, and then I've not seen it since I watched it on DVD. And it's one of those, isn't it? Everybody talks about how it's the best football film ever, and I've got a feeling they've not seen it for ages. So I'm really looking forward to rewatching it.
Yeah, I think it's been about 12 years since I've watched
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, like, all season long, our top two has not budged. I fully don't expect it to budge after goal either. That's just me. Just early predictions. I don't know. Things could change. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
All right.
We'll
Well,
see.
thanks very much for joining me, guys.
No worries. No
Yeah,
worries.
it.
Fun.
Thank you for the trivia. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank
congratulations
you
on
very
your.
much. There's a
on
trophy, right?
Yeah, hashtag forever first.
Oh God.
It's true. It's only funny. It's only funny if you know the Canadian Premier League.
Inside joke. Yeah.
Well played, well played. Well, I'll speak to you next week, guys. Thank you very much.
Well, with that, from the terrace to the theater, we're Matchday Matinee. See you next time.